watched my mid-June wrap-up, you will have seen that at the end of it, I kind of didn't know where to go with reading. I didn't know what to read, what to pick up. I gave a couple of options for books, but somehow the book that I'm actually reading, it's like I forgot that it existed. It's like I forgot that it was a book, that it was on my TBR, that I had put it on, I think it was my summer TBR for the month. And that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. As you can see, yes, we have already matched the ribbon to the book cover. This is going to be the third TJR book that I will have read. It is not the only TJR book that I own. I've got physical copies of Evelyn Hugo and this. I've got e-copies of Daisy Jones, Maybe in Another Life, Forever Interrupted. Carrie Soto is back. I've got a NetGalley copy of that. I'm pretty sure I'm missing one of them. Maybe it's After I Do is the other one that I've got. I'm about 20 pages in. I read this on sprints, and when I say I read it, what I actually mean is that I was on my phone the whole time and this book was in the vicinity. But I am very hype about it. I know that a lot of people have read and loved this. I have really big respect as well for Taylor Jenkins Reid as an author. I've loved the books of hers that I have read so far. So I am excited to finally get this one ticked off. And I think as well, if I deem it a dad appropriate book, I am gonna hand this one over to my dad when I go back over in July. I noticed something today. Oops. This was bound to happen. This was going to happen eventually. I am about an hour to the end of the audiobook of Bridgerton, and I think that that is where I and the book series are going to part ways for possibly forever. And the reason that I'm going to give you happens about 75% of the way into the first book. I wasn't very familiar with the storyline before I read the book. As you can tell by the previous clip where I told you that I didn't know it was a fake dating. I also didn't know that there's a marital rape scene 75-ish% of the way through the book. And that was a big no from me, Chief. It's also the woman rapes her husband. And while that's not shown quite a lot in books or in the media that I have read or that I've seen or am familiar with, it still doesn't excuse it. Whatever the gender of the person who rapes you, still doesn't excuse the act. Obviously, it's a big trigger point for a lot of people, and it's pretty much put me off the rest of the series. I don't know for sure if I'm going to watch the TV show. I was on sprints with Michelle and Lexie today, and some people in the comments told me that it does appear in the show. Michelle herself didn't remember if it has been done in the show or not. Some people said that it was worse in the books than in the show. I'm going to sit with it for a bit, but I don't think I'm going to continue the series. And as of now, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to go along with the show itself. People have said that the second series is cute and that it's got something to do with bees. I'm not entirely sure what the connection with bees is, but I'm giving this a 3-star. And I think even before the sexual assault had happened, it might have been a 4-star. I was enjoying it. But this is what happens when you lose the dressing room. Where to from here? That is a very good question. I genuinely do not know. I don't know where to we're going. I don't know what audiobook I'm going to read next. I have got my physical copy of Malibu Rising all the way over there on my bed. I'm not very far into Malibu Rising. I think I'm about 20 pages or so into it. And I have a little kind of internal discussion with myself about it. It's a very kind of immaterial discussion at the end of the day. But the book takes place in August. For Irish people, autumn starts already in August. Autumn is my favourite season, and one of the prompts for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge is to read a book that is set in your favourite season. For the vast majority of the world, for people who are in the Northern Hemisphere and who follow the regular Gregorian calendar, August is a summer month. But for the Irish, we have a different calendar. I think it's somewhat based on lunar patterns. Autumn starts with the harvest, which generally starts in August. And actually the Irish names for September and October translate directly into English, respectively, as the middle of autumn and the end of autumn. My internal struggle at the moment is whether or not I'm going to say that this book takes place in my favourite season, or if it doesn't. What do you think I should do? What is the current temperature?
Right now, it's 26 degrees Celsius.
It's 11 o'clock at night. I have spent most of the day that I've been awake for with the Riva family. They are nuts. I love seeing kind of little bits of Evelyn Hugo in this book, seeing mentions of Carrie Soto in this book, knowing that she's going to have a book coming out soon. There's so much of like a Taylor Jenkins Reid universe, like a cinematic universe, that I am so ready to discover. I am currently at page 200. I'm going to read a little bit more before I go to bed. But I am so interested and so intrigued by this story. We've just gotten to the start of the party at the Riva home. Something that I also didn't know about this book is that it's kind of a dual timeline. There's what's happening now on the day of the party at the Riva house, but there is also back when their parents met, how they fell in love, got married, all kinds of things that had happened in their lives. I'm in. I'm invested. Tomorrow I'm going to a small town about 2 hours away from here called Quedlinburg, and that is what you picture in your head when you think about Germany, when you're thinking about like the houses and the streets and, you know, those like wooden houses. They're all there. I'm gonna take you with me, and I'm also gonna show you the food that we're gonna eat, so don't worry about that. I don't know if I'm gonna get a whole lot of time to actually read the book on the train. I'll bring it with me, but I'm not gonna make any promises. Yesterday, while I was on the train, I finished Malibu Rising. I say on the train, I actually came home, finished maybe the last 20 pages before I went to sleep. But I am now fully ready to talk about it. Mick Riva does not deserve a Father of the Year award. We'll put that bluntly. But I've really enjoyed watching the whole family, apart from him, kind of coming together, realizing who they were as people. There's a couple of kind of discoveries, journeys that are happening in the midst of this book, and I absolutely loved reading that. I don't think I'm going to give it for the autumn book. Having read it, it does feel a lot more summery than an August that I would be used to, so I think I'm going to have to go and look elsewhere for an autumn book. But now that that is finished, it's time to move on. I am going to start Felix Ever After today after work. I've got more sprints coming on my channel, so I'm going to start it there. This is a buddy read with my friend Paige from Pages with Paige. Paige and I tried to do a buddy read last July, maybe the July before. But between the jigs and the reels, both of us had to abandon the book for that month. And then we both came back to it a little bit later into the year, and then both ended up absolutely adoring it. I'm really hoping that we don't abandon this one halfway through, but I am really hoping that A, we're going to finish it, and B, we're going to both really enjoy it. This also has quite a fast turnaround when it comes to books for me, because I bought this when I was in Hamburg at the start of this month, and that was like the 4th or 5th of June, and today is the 20th. I don't think I have ever gotten through a book that quickly as it's come on and off my shelf. Yes, I am wearing my pyjamas top at 7 o'clock at night. I don't plan on going anywhere else for the day. Thank you for noticing. Felix and I I'm about 180 pages into it, and I have kind of mixed emotions about this book. I know that this is the kind of book that a trans teenager, a non-binary teenager, a teenager who's figuring out their sexuality or their gender identity is going to really love and really appreciate, and I absolutely see that part of this book. It's so relevant to that kind of an audience. But there is something about this book that I don't love. In the first 70 pages alone, there are 5 references to that book series by that person. For a book that is written by a trans non-binary author, which features a trans, possibly non-binary main character, it feels wrong. It feels like it's in the wrong place. It doesn't feel like it belongs in this kind of a book. The book was published in 2020, I believe, so this was just around the time that that person was starting to show who they were. But it doesn't feel right. Given the whole situation of this book, it just doesn't feel like the kind of thing that should be here. For the last couple of weeks, I have been craving bagels non-stop. But the problem is that you cannot find bagels in Germany for love nor money. They are probably in Aldi 3 times a year, if you're lucky, and I always stock up on them. But I thought, you know what, I don't know when that next time of year is going to be. I'm going to make them myself. Enter Midnight Chicken by Ellen Risbridger. This was written after Ella's partner John passed away from a brain tumour, and it kind of chronicles all of the comfort food that she turned to, all of the foods that got her through that really dark period of her life. I haven't really gone through this book a lot because the nickname that she has for her former partner is also the nickname that I had for a former partner, but I think I'm a little bit distance from the situation now that I can go back to it and I can just take it for what it is. In this book that you will see, as I have very technologically saved with a sticky note, is a recipe for Fiona's bagels. I don't know who Fiona is, but if she's got me a bagel recipe, I'm going to worship at her altar. So I'm going to give these a try. I don't know how they're going to go, but I invite you along on the journey so that we can all hang our heads in shame when it's finished. I started with the intention to make 12, then I ended up making 9, and we finished with 3 and they don't even look that good. They can't all be a hit, okay? I'm finished. I haven't run it through Call yet because I literally just turned the last page 2 seconds ago before I came on here. But I think this is going to be maybe a high 3 or a low 4 stars. There are a couple of things that I didn't like about this book. As I've said, there's quite a lot of Harry Potter references in here, and it has a kind of Gossip Girl-like vibe to it, in that all of these kids are young, privileged, rich, living in like their own apartments while their parents pay for it, and going out and smoking every evening, taking drugs every evening. It's not the kind of world that I grew up in. I don't know if this is just New York as it is, or if this is the New York that the author knows, but it's a little bit alienating for me. All of that said, there are kids out here, there are teenagers out here who are going to need this book. They're going to see themselves in every page that they turn, whether it's that there's other black characters in there, whether it's that there's other gay characters in there, trans characters in there. And I really, really hope that this falls into the hands of the people who need it. I really hope that this is a book that people can see themselves in and can feel validated by. Overall, it's a kind of a middle of the road one for me, but I am really glad that I got to read it. Is it possible that I will regret doing this? Yes. I'm going in. I bought this about a month, maybe 2 months ago. It's a summer book. It's literally got summer in the title. So it feels like now is a good time, particularly because it's about 1,000,000 degrees outside. Super sunny, super bright. But I'm scared, friends. I am very scared about the possibility of not enjoying this book. Tessa Bailey and I have a very tumultuous relationship. I haven't really loved the dirty talk that she's had in any of her books before. Lily from Literary Lily read this and also read Hook, Line and Sinker a couple of weeks ago, and she's been telling me about it, and she was impressed. She liked it, but of course the dirty talk was a bit of a turn down for her. So let's see what I think. What would you do if I said I was enjoying this? Now what if I said I wasn't kidding? I'm actually genuinely into this book. Okay, there hasn't been a sex scene yet, so there hasn't been any trademark Tessa Bailey dirty talk, but I don't hate it. Surprisingly, I don't hate it. Okay, the sex scene might take me back slightly off Team Tessa, but overall, I'm more on board than I have been with any other Tessa Bailey book that I've ever read. This might be the very first Tessa Bailey book that's ever going to get higher than like a 2 or 3 stars. Who would have thought this is what 30 would bring? Today is the 30th of June. Tomorrow, 1st of July, is a Friday, and I will be reading Finlay Donovan is Killing It as a buddy read with Brianna from Four Paws in a Book, and also with my in real life friend Roisin. So the task now lies on my shoulders to not get the two conversations mixed up, because we're going to have separate conversations. The task lies on my shoulders to not get them mixed up and accidentally give somebody a spoiler who's not as far as the other person is in the book. Come and check back in for the mid-July vlog, where not only will I have read and finished Finlay Donovan, fingers crossed, but also I will be back in Ireland for the whole month. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.